Alright, for this video, we're going to be heading back to Cutanea. If you haven't checked out the Cutanea's Valley of Swords video, I strongly suggest you do that first because a lot of the context to this world is found in that video. It was loosely based off of and inspired by a sci-fi novel called Blood Music by Greg Bear, where the molecules inside of a body gain consciousness and take over the host. It was a terrifying novel written in the 80s that was amazing and mind-blowing and became the backdrop for the setting. And based on that, I created this first round of Kitbash models, and they were painted in this kind of fluorescent biomarker theme, representing that microscopic search for viruses, bacteria, and other kinds of demented goings on the surface of the skin of some random animal. And so that's the backdrop of this whole thing. And I wanted to add to this force. And so, in the spirit of what orcs are all about, I embraced kitbashing very deeply and took on a combination of the spirit of Def-Copta riders and pilots in the Orc Warhammer models, this World War II prototype Japanese airplane that had the propeller in the back. I thought that was a perfect kind of back-asswards orc kind of candidate to be kitbashed. And also just some random plastic toys and third-party resin parts to source like a snow plow and oversized tires, and really just mixing these all together to come up with something that I ended up being quite proud of. Looks something like this. This was the kitbashed version before painting and finishing. And you can see if you go to Pinterest or Instagram, you'll find a lot of people have taken the fuselages of old airplanes and turning them into kind of dragster racing kinds of trucks, 4x4s, and other kinds of race cars. And so I really love that. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. So I pulled all of these things together into this beast that would only befit kind of an orc to pilot it. And here's just a version where I annotated the different components. So starting kind of at 12 o'clock in the top middle, I sourced an orc Def-Copta pilot that you'll see in the finished painting that was going to go in the cockpit. To the right, you'll see that I sourced this, fuselage from a 1/48 scale Hasegawa Japanese airplane. I put an antenna pole on there. I've noticed a lot of these old planes had wires that were connecting either for antenna or other kinds of structural integrity of these old planes. I pulled some heavy kind of mud wheels from a 135 scale old APC carrier. I got some resin exhaust pipes that I cut to size and shape to really link to this engine that I made out of third-party sci-fi bits. And then these big chunky 4x4 tires on the front that I used fish weights that were spiky and cut them off and glued them to the tires to make these big spiky front wheel drive tires for this craft. And then a tiny toy snow plow I bolted onto the front that I thought gave it a really menacing look and that they might use. And then a cow skull. On the original one, I put this there. You'll see how it shifts onto the snowplow. But these are kind of the components, and I just wanted to break them down before we get straight into what the finished result looked like. And here it is, still on the painting desk, but in its full paint job. I went with this super aggressive, classic kind of shark mouth and eyes in the front. And actually, if you could tell, like I've swapped around the front and the back of this fuselage. So this was this weird airplane that was designed to fly with the propeller in the rear, but I flipped that because I thought having that in the front was a lot more aggressive. And you'll see the orc rider, Def-Copta rider, with his long, flowing, bleached blonde hair in a super aggressive position, mounted in there. And then, of course, all the different details going with a two-tone paint job, some decals from various World War II and other kinds of bits, a skull mounted to the front of the plow, and a top view so you can kind of get a sense how this thing might flow. And then I also built this in a way that it could be magnetized so that I could pack it up and store. I'm going to be moving soon, and I wanted to protect it. So the plow itself comes off the front. The tires in the front are magnetized to the plow, and the Ork pilot is also removable. And I'm calling these Ork pilots the Puss boyz, and they ride Skab Grindas. And those are really these vehicles that are designed to really wreak havoc on wounds on the surface of the skin that are trying to heal. And these guys come in whenever they get word of a healing wound somewhere on the surface of the skin, and they ride these big spiked beasts in there to rip up those scabs and make that wound fresh again, create pain, and hopefully get some of the bacteria boys, which will be a kitbash I do in the future, to come in and wreak havoc in that open wound. And just a little preface to this story. I know some of you are quite sensitive to the old usage of AI in videos. Just as a disclaimer, I wrote the script and recorded this myself with my own voice, and then I did use some AI from 11 Labs to modulate my voice to make it sound a bit more Cockney and Orkish, because I couldn't pull that off. I'm not a voice actor. But yeah, let me know what you think of that. I love experimenting, and to be honest, I think AI, while it has its setbacks and its challenges, is also just a fun way to explore different dimensions of the hobby and try to dial up some of your creative expression. So I gave that a shot here, and love to know what you think. So without further ado, let's listen to the perspective of one of these Puss boys as he rides his Skab Grinda into a fresh wound.
The name's Rotkutta, Puss Nobz, driver of the Itchin Rippa. Me Skab Grinda's a beast, stripped out of a airplane fuselage, spiked treads up front, rust slicers in the back. Built her myself, back when I still had 2 arms. Lost the left one drilling into a boil that burst acid. Now I got this corkscrew bolt gun jammed in its place. Great for anchoring into raw scab fresh when it's time to dismount. Keeps me steady when the surface starts a-screaming. Now listen, this morning we got a word at a fresh scrape up north, only 24 hours old. Skin barely starting to crust. Blood, pus, plasma. Perfect. That's prime riding time before the wet bloods start patching it proper. I fired up the grinder and tore straight across the crust fields. These other Puss Nobz were still loading fuel cells when I bolted. I seen that wound first. Red as a knob's backside and twice as tender. Punched it into overdrive. Skab Grinda's wheels gripping hard. Front treads chewing through the crust. Back slices a spraying dry blood like rain. I aimed right for the deepest part where the nerve ends still twitch. Slammed straight through it, tore it wide open. Could hear that dermis a-howling. That's when I drilled in. Tuck, 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 tuck. Anchoring myself into the pain. Sweet, warm, screaming pain. Left a trench right through the middle. That'll make it a nice, open sore for the bacteria boys. they'll crawl in, spread to rot, do their little dance. Me? Well, I just clear that path. It's a good day on Cutanea. Nothing like riding a fresh one.
Hey, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little story in Kitbash. Let me know if you want to see more Cutanea-based builds on the surface of the skin, and I can't wait to do more of it.